This is P.L. Myers, a shot to the top, pro wrestling's manager extraordinaire.
This is Steve Michaels, the master of the Chicago Bear Hug.
This is Tim Storm, former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. You're listening to What Do You Say with DDJ. If you love professional wrestling, this is where you need to get your information. Don't miss this.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 10. Yes, I said episode 10. I've hit double digits of What Do You Say with DDJ. I am coming to you from the glorious DDJ podcast studio. And my guest for episode 10 of What Do You Say with DDJ is one half of a very exciting tag team that competes in the Chicago area, Youth Gone Wild. His name is Matt Creed. He's got some really neat stories that he's going to share, and I hope you enjoy the show. So kick back, relax, grab a cold one, grab some food, and enjoy episode 10 of What Do You Say with DDJ and my guest, Matt Creed. All right, welcome to episode 10 of What Do You Say with DDJ, and with me this evening, I have one half of the tag team Youth Gone Wild, Matt Creed. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, doing fantastic, man.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. Tell my audience a little bit about yourself. Who exactly is Matt Creed?
Oh man, dude, I'm a professional wrestler, obviously. One half of Youth Gone Wild. We've been running rampant on the independent scene for quite a while. Got my start in the business back in 2007 with Pro Championship Wrestling down in Chicago Ridge. Just been working down and around. That's pretty much who I am. I'm a guy who loves professional wrestling. This is, what I want to do. This is where I am. That's who I am.
Awesome. So are you from the area?
Yes, I'm actually from Chicago. So a little bit about Youth Gone Wild, the way that we work. So both Tom and I, we were raised right here in Chicago, Illinois. We both got training from Pro Championship Wrestling out in Chicago Ridge. And, going forward with our gimmick and our style, we decided to branch out. And so we went out to Los Angeles, California to do some training out there. And that's how we got the whole Skid Row, Los Angeles, California thing. And we got that background. So, but yeah, technically we're from Chicago, so.
Gotcha. Awesome. So how did you discover pro wrestling?
I grew up watching it. My dad and my uncles, they basically were watching it before I was born. My dad was a huge Bushwhackers fan, and he loved those gimmicks, and I just fell in love with it ever since I was 5. But I'm pretty sure that I was sitting in front of a TV before I even realized what wrestling was. But yeah, I grew up because in that area with my cousins watching it and my uncles. So it's basically been around my entire life.
Nice. Now, were you? Did you watch just WWE? Did you get a chance to watch WCW? Anything else?
Yeah, my main product. I'm a WWE, WWF guy, I guess you could say. But I was branching out. I watched ECW and WCW when I was growing up. NWA. AWA shows. When I got older, I started, watching a little bit of New Japan Pro and going into the older footage, back in the 70s, 80s, era. But I was mostly a WWF guy. So
Cool. And who were some of your early favorites?
My top favorite is Owen Hart. He's basically the reason why I'm in the business. Both inside and outside of the ring, I think he's a great guy. I've never met him, but the stories that people tell and obviously the matches that he's put on, just fantastic. I grew up liking Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker. I was a big Yokozuna fan because, I mean, for a guy who's like 600 pounds to move that quick, and that's just pure athletic ability there. So,
yeah, he was pretty impressive for a guy his size.
Oh yeah.
So when did you decide that pro wrestling was something you wanted to do?
I mean, it was kind of always there. I mean, I wanted to do other things. As kids, we always want to do something, like be a police officer or a firefighter, a doctor, heck, even a Power Ranger, it's always been there. I think I finally, kind of pulled the trigger in my sophomore year of high school and said, this is where I want to go and this is where I want to be. And so I went down to my college career center, a little place down in my high school. And little did I know, I didn't know this, but the college advisor, or whatever she was, her last name was Nowinski, and she was actually the mother of Chris Nowinski.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so I actually got in touch with Chris, and I had a few conversations with him about how to get into pro wrestling, what should I look for, just some conversations, some personal, some about wrestling and stuff like that. So, I think around my senior year, I decided, this is where I'm going. And I started looking up companies, and that's when I found Pro Championship Wrestling. They had a really good school, decent pricing, and, great training. I mean, look at where Tom and I are now. We're on the rise. So
awesome. So now when you got started connecting with Chris, was he still actively wrestling, or had he already been retired at this point in time?
No, so he was still working for the WWE. He was the I forget what his role was. It's like a political correspondent or something like that for the WWE.
Okay.
He was also already retired from the multiple concussion syndrome
Right.
that he had. So, but I mean, either way, it was just an honor to talk to him and pick his brain and see what his insights were about the business.
Now, was there anything, like any advice he gave you that you still apply to this day?
There's some advice that I apply in my wrestling today. And with Chris, especially after his head injury, he was very, all about safety, and, watch what you're doing, be safe, make sure the other guy's safe, make sure, but it's professional wrestling. So, accidents will happen, and, you can't be 100% safe all the time. So, but there are some things that I still apply.
That's cool. So you'd mentioned you trained with Pro Championship Wrestling. I actually used to go to the shows religiously from like 2002 to about like 2004.
Oh man, you missed us.
I did miss you. I actually think I caught Tom on the very last show they ran.
Okay.
I can't remember who he was wrestling against, but I do remember seeing him on their last show they did. So who were some of the guys that trained you at Pro Championship Wrestling?
Oh man, there were actually a handful of guys. I was trained by Johnny Mack,
Okay.
Jared Priest,
Yeah, I
Rick
know him.
Rocket, Rick Knight.
Yep, another
Had a hand in training. Who else? Jeez, there's so many. Santana Starks, if you know who he is.
He sounds familiar.
Yeah, but there were probably at least like 6 or 7, guys. I mean, they had different nights that you could train on and everything, which was pretty cool. So, it wasn't large class sizes, and you got a lot of one-on-one experience too. So it was pretty cool.
And how invaluable do you think that one-on-one experience really is?
I think it's very valuable. I mean, it's when you're working in a large group, it's nice to watch other guys do stuff, and then kind of like nitpick on their maneuvers and how they're working. You can kind of see things a little bit better, but that's why I always set up a little camera outside of the ring. So when I'm doing the one-on-ones, I can always go to my camera and just watch the footage back to see what I'm doing wrong. Because you can't always nitpick your own things when you're in a big, big class group. But with the smaller ones, you can actually do that. So I prefer the smaller ones. I like that.
Very cool. Very cool. So was there anybody in particular that you felt like you got the most out of all those guys, or were they all gave you about the same?
They gave about the same. But if I had to, I mean, there were some guys that worked you harder. And I think that I got a lot out of classes with Jared Priest, Johnny Mack, and Jay Phoenix. Those guys would probably be the 3 guys that probably shared the most knowledge and experience, and really, sat down and took the time to actually teach you stuff. So.
And what would you say was probably the biggest thing or the most important thing that you learned while training in PCW?
There's quite a lot of big things that I probably learned. But are you talking about maneuver-wise, or are you talking about just in general?
Just in general. Like
just
a piece of advice or just a lesson that maybe it's kind of stuck with you throughout the years?
A big thing is they always instilled respect among the other professional wrestlers in the locker room. So, I mean, that was a big teaching how to basically etiquette, how to hold yourself and how to hold your own in the locker room. Was a big thing, because now that PCW ended, I got to branch out, and it was good teaching, and good learning experience, to learn how to have respect for other guys and get respect back. That was a big thing for me.
Cool. Now, do you still stay in contact with any of the guys that trained you?
Not really. No. I mean, once in a while I'll run into somebody, or I get a message on Facebook or something, but yeah, not really. I don't really run into those guys anymore since the company folded. So.
Gotcha. So one of my best friends that came out of that organization that I really grew and got to be really good friends with was Paul Myers. Did you have any kind of interaction with him?
Yes, a lot of interaction. Some good, some bad. I mean, Paul, and whether it was good or bad, at the end of the night, you shake your hands, you put your differences aside, and he is one of the top managers in the Chicagoland area. So I mean, I got to give him credit where credit is due. He's had a great career, but PL, you put me through hell. You put Tom through hell. You put Youth Gone Wild through hell. And that's not cool, man.
So now that he's a part of Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, do you have any plans on maybe seeking any retribution, or are we asking too much right now?
When Tom and I found out that he was going to be a part of CCW, we were actually eager to see him. We do have some stuff in store. The Chicago Connection and Youth Gone Wild have had a huge rivalry in Pro Championship Wrestling, and I'd like to take that rivalry to a whole new level in CCW, and maybe even finish it. End that rivalry. But the only original Chicago Connection member currently is PL. I believe he had somebody else that he just brought into CCW. So
yeah, he did. And again, for those that are listening to this that have not seen this, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to spoil anything. Just as soon as the show is released on Amazon Prime, keep an eye out on Facebook, because I'm sure Matt, along with Tom and everybody else at CCW and myself, we are going to let you know so you can see who the newest member of the Chicago Connection is. So going back to your time in PCW, so how long did you train there before you had your first match?
I trained before my first match, I trained for about 4 months.
Okay.
And they gave me, I was actually brought in as a tag team wrestler with the American Classic Chris Hamilton. They actually used to call me Kid Classic Matt Creed back then. But they brought me in 4 months after, and we ran for a little while as a tag team, and then I had a short kind of singles career, back as a tag team, singles career, and then me and Tom just got put together. So
awesome. So can you go into a little bit more about you and Tom? You just mentioned about how hooking up with Tom. What led to that, and how did it actually come about? Was it just random? Did you guys go to each other? Tell my audience a little bit more about the story about the birth of Youth Gone Wild.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a weird story. What was happening was Tom was sitting in the locker room, and I had no idea what was going on. I was out by ringside talking to guys like Rion Skills and Whiplash, and we were just kind of chatting, sitting around, and Rick Rocket had walked up to me, and he was just like, hey, come over here, kid, and brought me into the locker room, and I saw Tom sitting there, and Rick Knight, Wally Wild, Johnny Mack, they were all just standing there, and I'm sitting like, oh no, something's wrong. I didn't do anything, I swear. But I sat down, and Rick kind of just, said, hey, look, you guys, are great and everything, but you guys are both singles competitors, and we've got nothing that we can do with you. We don't have any good ideas for you at this time, no good storylines, no good gimmicks, nothing. And they said, so we're going to try one last thing, and if it doesn't work, I'm sorry to say, we're going to have to fire you. And curious to what that one last thing would be, they wanted us to tag team that night and see how that goes. So what Tom and I did was we basically didn't talk to each other up until that point, I mean, it was, most of the time when we got into the locker rooms, we would say hi to each other, shake each other's hands, but we'd sit at opposite corners of the locker room. So this, in like about a year and a half span, we finally got together. We sat in the locker room. We asked, what each other can do. And we went out there, and I mean, by the end of our match, we came back through the locker room. Rick had pulled me aside, and, he was just like, that was match of the night. The charisma was just there. Tom and I, from then on, just started dominating the tag division. We were 3-time PCW champions. Actually won against the late Eric Marks and Johnny Mack, the Chicago Homewreckers. That was our first tag team win at Dream Night 9. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically how we got together.
Pretty cool story. So obviously you mentioned winning the titles for the first time at Dream Night 9, and I went to Dream Night 2, and I know that was always like their WrestleMania, their biggest show of the year. So what was it like winning the tag titles at their at the biggest show of PCW's year? What did that mean to you?
Yeah, it was a complete honor. I mean, first to win it from the Home Wreckers, Johnny Max and Eric Marks. It was a complete honor. But I was just elated. I mean, it was my first title. It was Tom's first title. We didn't really think that we were gonna be a tag team. We didn't, know where we were going and, what we were doing. We were just two guys that kind of got put together and had the charisma by luck. And, yeah, I mean, it was probably one of the greatest moments of my career to this date. And I think a lot of guys will say that about their first titles. They can remember that, that night. So, I mean, that was probably one of the best nights of my life. So.
Gotcha. Now, how long were you with PCW? Were you there till they closed down, or?
Yeah, both Tom and I were actually there till they closed down in December of 2014. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they were going through a little bit of a storyline, and actually with that storyline, Tom and I were actually going to break up and feud over their Midwest championship. But I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because, hey, maybe we wouldn't be around today.
Right. Now, did you guys have any kind like going into that last show, did you have any kind of idea that they were shutting down at the time, or was it even something that was discussed at the time?
No, I think only the promoters knew, and I don't think that all the promoters knew. There were, I think, like 6 or 7 I should say investors. Mm-hmm. But I would probably say maybe like 2 or 3 of the investors out of those 6 to 7 actually knew. And I was told about it right before my match went out. Rick, who was the president of the company, he had pulled me aside and said, hey, go out there, try to get match of the night again, and just have some fun, because this is the last night PCW is going to be around. And I was like, thanks for telling me, right before my match, but me and GPA had a wonderful match, and it was just an honor to work for them. So.
Yeah, actually, now that you bring that up, I do remember, because I remember that was my first time seeing both you and GPA at the time, and I don't know if you remember the Tony Parker chant.
Yes.
I was actually the one that started that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was there with my best friend, and I was like, my God, he looks almost like he could be Tony Parker's kid.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. So yeah, that if GPA, if you're listening to this out there, yeah, I was the guy that started the Tony Parker chant, and you're welcome.
And you suck. Still to this day.
Okay, so once PCW shut down, where did you and Tom go after that?
After it shut down, Tom and I decided to take a hiatus from tag team wrestling. We had kind of spoken about it. That was kind of, like 2014 in PCW was we were kind of winding down in the tag team division. So we decided, like, let's take a break. Let's do some singles competitions and, see where that takes us and, better ourselves in the single, area and, maybe one day come back. So we just kind of took a hiatus and went our own ways.
Now, okay, so where did you go after PCW then? Like, where were some of the other places you wound up working?
So after Pro Championship Wrestling, I got into Total Lucha Libre, right down in Cicero, and I worked for Brute Championship Wrestling. I worked for the Boss Man Harley Race and WLW, and I currently work for Intense Championship Wrestling out in Marion, Indiana. So I branched out a lot of places. I worked for Covey Pro. I worked in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. I didn't really work in Illinois much. I think I did a few POW shows, but I just got out of Illinois and started working in other states and tried to better myself. Okay,
cool. So I'm going to get back because you mentioned Harley Race, and I want to definitely get your take on him. So you mentioned like all the different places you've been and stuff. Now, did you find that, like, say when you went to West Virginia, like, or any place else, what was the style of independent wrestling? Like, say, we'll just use West Virginia as an example. How different was it, if any, to compared to what you had in from being into this Chicago area?
There's not really much of a difference. Sometimes, maneuvers might go by different names.
Okay.
But there wasn't really a difference. What I did learn is that there are a lot of different styles, and through the years, I was lucky enough to actually learn those styles, like Lucha Libre, from the Great Lake Discovery. I was also a student of Kalisto, Samurai del Sol, for Lucha Libre. I learned both Japanese and California strong style. So I kind of branched out and got to learn all these different styles that people were working, and I worked some of the top talent that I like to call top talent. Tigre Uno was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I worked the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, wow.
Just to be in the ring with those guys, that's enough, to learn from. But then, after the match or before the match, sitting down and picking their brain, that's where I got all my experience from.
Nice. So you might actually, I'm going to show you this. And for those of you who are listening to this, go on when this is up on YouTube, please check it out and stuff. But actually, I got this. I won it in an auction. It's actually worn by Ricky Morton in a match. So.
Oh wow, cool.
So I had the pleasure of meeting Ricky and Robert about 2.5 years ago. They did an appearance at the Pro Wrestling Tea Store, and two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet and stuff. So, and it's so nice to hear, you say, what you said about them, because I think it's what I always hear about Ricky and Robert. Now, circling back, you mentioned working for it was WLW with Harley Race.
Yes.
What was Harley like to work for?
Great guy. Just like I said about any of the other guys, just picking his brain. he always had something to say about the matches, and you know, just being there, and hey, like he would actually sit down and watch these matches too. So it wasn't just, you know, his company and he was backstage, you know, sleeping on some couch or you know, whatever. You know, he would actually sit there and watch these matches. You know, while he was signing autographs or, you know, whatever he was doing, he would sit there and he would always have something to say. So, you know, most of the times it was always something good, but it was to better the person, you know. So it wasn't like he was putting the guy down and saying, "Oh no, you need to do this better." He was saying, you know, that was a great job, you know, but, you know, maybe do this a little bit, you know. So it's just, you know, the experience of talking with him, and, you know, that's a lot of things that, you know, guys aren't gonna, you know, have nowadays. You know, it's just the experience.
So what would you say was the best piece of advice, or the one thing that Harley taught you that impacted your career the most?
You know, he was big on my psychology,
Okay.
in my in-ring psychology, and in the one match that I did, he was kind of basically telling me the psychology's there, but the ring awareness isn't. So with ring awareness is, for people that don't know, is where the spot happens in the ring. And during one of the matches, I had actually super kicked a guy, but we were really close to the ropes, and the guy fell into the ropes and out of the ring, and that wasn't actually supposed to happen. We covered it, but with the experience that he had, he saw that there was a flaw in that, and, you know, kind of hiccuped the match, but the fans didn't notice, you know. So he kind of stated, like, you know, you guys covered it, you know, because the fans didn't know, but, you know, a wrestler would. And if, you know, somebody didn't, you know, cover it, then, you know, you would have had a really big mess up. But he was just, you know, be aware of where you guys are in the ring, you know, and that was a big thing.
Cool. Okay, so you mentioned that you and Tom went your separate ways after PCW closed down. What ended up bringing you guys back together?
Tom had just randomly messaged me. This was probably in about 2018. He had messaged me mid 2018, and he had just, you know, said, you know, hey, you want to get the band back together? And my immediate answer was, yeah, let's do it. So we got back together actually in mid to late 2019 for Powerhouse Championship Wrestling down in Ottawa, and we kind of did that to see where our ring rust was as a tag team, to see if we still had the charisma. And, you know, after about 5 years of 4.5 years of not tagging, you know, but yeah, it was still there. We still had the maneuvers, you know, and the chemistry. So that's basically how we got back.
Cool. Okay, so how did you get into contact with John, and what was the process of getting in with CCW?
The process was actually pretty simple. John had actually messaged us. He had said he liked our style and our look, and he liked our matches. And so we kind of got into talking. We met up with John and we did an interview, and I mean, it was pretty simple. I mean, he just basically contacted us, and we said, yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so we're at the show here, and you and Tom came out to, had a Road Warriors little tribute. I believe you were wearing the I know one of you was at least wearing the Road Warrior Animal shirt. I know you had your face painted up like Animal, and Tom had his face painted up like Hawk. So obviously the Road Warriors must have had some sort of impact on you guys. Can you talk to me a little bit about what kind of impact the Road Warriors had on you?
Yeah. So, and I can speak for both of us on this.
Mm-hmm.
The Road Warriors are our favorite tag team.
Mine too.
Both Tom and I, in the early 90s, grew up watching them. They were kind of, I think for Tom, they were kind of his first tag team that he kind of saw and got into. For me, the same. We just kind of fell in love with them. I mean, they were two big guys, but at the same time, they could go and they could do anything. They were pretty balanced in what they were doing in the ring. And I think what caught our eye, and mine in particular, was that Doomsday Device. I mean, that's what made them stand out. But yeah, we just kind of fell in love with them. And then in 2000 and I want to say 2010, 2010, we had the honor of having Animal at a PCW show, and he had walked up to Tom's bag, and he saw his jacket, and his jacket had the spikes on there and everything. And I'm standing out in the in the entryway, and I'm sitting there, where's Tom? And apparently Animal was just gloating, and he's like, hey, what's with the spikes and all this, are you a wannabe Road Warrior, this and that? And Tom didn't know what to say because he had to go. And it was just crazy. And Road Warrior Animal kind of gave us a blessing to use spikes and use get that full Road Warrior gimmick and get that full look. We kind of became good acquaintances with Animal. We were I know Tom went to Las Vegas, but for the Cauliflower Alley Club, back in April, they were supposed to induct Road Warrior Animal and Hawk into the tag team award with Paul Ellering. And I guess because of the COVID, they had to kind of move that, and they moved it to September's date. And I know that Tom had contacted me to see if I wanted to go to the September one, because I wasn't able to attend the April one. And Tom had gotten a phone call from Animal before that, and they were kind of talking, and Animal wanted to go to lunch and dinner and all this, and I still couldn't make that date, so they apparently canceled that one too. And I guess the night that he was supposed to win the award, he actually passed away. And so and it I didn't find out I found out the next day, but Tom, I guess, had woken up and he was just devastated, and he called me immediately. And he's like, did you see the news? Did you look at? I'm like, and I mostly run our social media accounts, and I was like, no, I haven't been on Facebook, haven't been on Twitter, haven't been near my phone all day until you called me. And he said Animal had passed away, and I was like, are you serious? So I kind of had to look it up, because I know he wouldn't have joked around with that, because I mean, just how good of friends, we were with him, but yeah, I was totally devastated too. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I had just gotten in from doing my morning walk, and I was sitting down eating breakfast, and I was browsing through Facebook, and somebody had posted something about it, and there was that, and then just going on like online, going on Twitter, and then that's when it was just starting to blow up. And yeah, like I said, I was a huge Road Warriors fan. I took it really hard when Hawk died, and I think I even took it harder when Animal died because it just seemed so sudden, and it was just like, I mean, I remember I was in my car and I was out driving. I don't even remember where I was. I was just on the road somewhere, and I was talking to my mom, and I just started crying, and stuff, because they meant so much to me, and
mm-hmm.
it was really hard. I mean, I got to go on. I don't know if you listen to Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM, but they basically the whole show that day was devoted to Road Warrior Animal, and I got through and got to talk about my experiences meeting Hawk and Animal, and getting to spend some time with them and stuff, and just how much it meant to me and that. So yeah, so when you guys came out, when I had heard about it. But when I saw you guys come out like with the paint on and stuff, it really meant a lot to me, just being a Road Warriors fan. So I want to take a moment to thank you and Tom for doing that, because just for me, it meant so much.
Not a problem.
So one of the things I always like to ask everybody that I have on the show is one of the biggest criticisms that the WWE seems to incur on a weekly basis is that they don't seemingly want to create like new stars. They're just perfectly content in using most of the same guys over and over again. And I just want to get your opinion on how important it is for companies, not like all the way from the WWE to CCW to just wherever, like how the importance of always creating new stars is.
I think it's very important. For instance, you take John Cena. He's on the downhill spiral right now. I mean, he was once at the pinnacle of the WWE, but those guys fade away. Eventually, guys get older. Somebody's going to have to eventually take. There eventually needs to be somebody who takes his spot, whether that's, having a streak at WrestleMania or being, just a badass. And I think that's where Roman Reigns kind of came in. But with Roman, he was kind of already built up. So you gotta find new talent all the time, and you got to keep fresh, because if you don't keep fresh with your talent, it gets stale, and then the storylines get stale. So I mean, with WWE, there's a little bit more than just having a certain amount of guys that have been there and building those guys up. There's a little bit more than that. I mean, you got some storylines and some other stuff that needs to be changed. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's very important to have new talent constantly roll through.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. So a couple more questions here, and we'll start to wrap it up. Do you follow WWE or AEW or Impact? Do you follow any of the major promotions? And if so, who are some of the like your current favorites?
So with the WWE, I'll catch it once in a while. I'll definitely like watch their Royal Rumble pay-per-views or WrestleManias or SummerSlams.
Mm-hmm.
Raw and SmackDown, it is what it is nowadays. AEW, I was into it for a little while and then kind of got out of it. I do like some of what Impact is doing. I always thought that for the past maybe I don't know, maybe the past 10 years or so, Impact has really had more of the better wrestling. It's kind of looking at WWE and WCW. Impact has the better lower to mid card, wrestling, but the WWE has the bigger main events, and that's the way I kind of see it. But I try to keep up to date with like Ring of Honor and all these things. But if I had to, pick somebody from like WWE that I currently like, or just in general, there's a few guys. I would have to say, I mean, like obviously AJ Styles, when he was in TNA and WWE, and even when he went to New Japan, I mean, he literally had a phenomenal career. There's certain guys that I think that need to get a push. I'm a big R-Truth fan, especially when he was back in the day when he was, back in the day when he was, Ron Killing's NWA World Champion. I mean, he had the best attitude, best gimmick, but now he can still wrestle, but they're using him as a joke, So I think that if they gave him a good push, I think that WWE would really benefit because of that.
Yeah, R-Truth, Ron the Truth Killings, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, extremely underrated. And what I'm about to say may upset a few people out there, but you know what? This is my show. I'm going to say what I want. But R-Truth deserves to be in the Hall of Fame when all is said and done, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, he's, it's kind of like the debate between Edge and Christian. Who's a better wrestler? Well, in my so I would say Christian is a little bit better, only because he branched out more places. Whereas the entire Edge career was in WWE. I mean, Christian, you look at what he did. He went to Impact, became champion. He went to the NWA, became champion. Edge basically just stayed in WWE. But I could see Christian. Christian should be a Hall of Famer. He should be there with Edge. I think that, to be honest with you, they should have been brought in as a tag team initially for the Hall of Fame. I mean, they did a lot for the tag team scene in the early 2000s.
Agreed. Well, I think the only reason why I think Edge was brought in as a solo is because of the fact that he had to retire because of the issues with his neck. Obviously since then he's come back and looked great in my opinion, and I can't wait for him to recover from his triceps injury and stuff. But I agree. I definitely think Christian should be in there, and I think it's a shame that he's not. So last question I got here before I let you go is, how can people reach you on social media? Where can they buy your merchandise? And do you have any shows coming up?
So they could find me on Facebook at just look up Matt Creed Live, or or just Matt Creed. They can also find our Youth Gone Wild Facebook fan page on there. Youth Gone Wild and Matt Creed are both on Twitter. Matt Creed is at MDC _Creed, and Youth Gone Wild is at the Rebellion, YGW Rebellion. As far as T-shirts, we've got I think we've got 2 or 3 on the Pro Wrestling Tees website. You can go look at the Matt Creed store, or if you're a tag team fan of Youth Gone Wild, you can just look up the Youth Gone Wild store. As far as shows coming up, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling out in April 17th, I believe it is.
Yes,
we'll be back in Michigan.
So.
And then I got a show, I believe, in March, first Saturday of March, for Intense Championship Wrestling. Currently, with all the COVID and everything, it's shows are running sporadically, and I'm sure that there's probably going to be a show sooner than later. But those are the two closest for right now.
Awesome. Well, I already got my ticket for the CCW show on the 17th, so I will definitely see you there. And yeah, make sure fans, tickets are $10 for that show, or you can get a family 4-pack for $30. If you didn't get a chance to go to the first show, please make it a point to go to this one, because I guarantee you will be thoroughly entertained. These are some great guys. They're going to put on a great show. And if you're a big fan of the old studio wrestling scene, it's going to feel, you're going to have those feelings all over again when you go to a CCW show. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on April 17th, and best of luck to you in the future.
All right, man. Rock on.
Thanks, Matt, for joining me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope all of you that are listening to this or watching this on YouTube really enjoyed it as well. If you'd like to support Matt, you can go to ProWrestlingTees.com, search for Matt Creed or Youth Gone Wild, and pick up a really cool shirt. He's got some really nice designs on there. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, please go to ChicagolandChampionshipWrestling.com and get your tickets for the April 17th show. Again, like I said in the interview, you really owe it to yourself to go to the show if you can, because I guarantee you're going to enjoy yourself. A lot of talented guys there, and the setup is very much reminiscent of an old school NWA studio taping. Tickets are $10, or you can get a family 4-pack for $30, and come out for a great night of wrestling. That's April 17th at the American Legion in Michigan City, Indiana. The information will be posted on the episode description of this episode on all the major podcasting platforms, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you will have seen it flashing across the screen. Want to give a very special shout out to John Bullard and the rest of the crew for such an awesome show, and making me feel like I was a really big deal. I really appreciated all the wrestlers, coming up to me asking their opinion, for my opinion on the show. John, you really are running a first-class organization, and I cannot wait to be at the show on April 17th. Alrighty then, well, as always, thank you to my best friend in the world, Andre Boyd, for doing the music, and I will see you all in about around a week or so with another episode of What Do You Say with DDJ.